Come be a part of Doc Holliday's Rock-Splitting Politics with your host, Dr. Ed Holliday. Hear the voices of liberty speaking all across America. Doc Holliday provides thought-provoking interviews and commentary about the issues and actions that are afflicting this country and what we need to do to get America back on track. Get fired up, get inspired, get on board with Doc Holliday's Rock-Splitting Politics right now.
And here we go.
Welcome once again to Doc Holliday's Rock-Splitting Politics. I'm your host, Dr. Ed Holliday. You're listening to us on webtalkradio.net. That's webtalkradio.net. And did you hear the sound of rock cracking last week when the Mueller report came out just the day before Good Friday? It was like a avalanche of rocks rolling down a hillside, a mountainside, with all the voices on the left confused, dazed, but not giving up. They jumped from collusion to obstruction of justice, back and forth. But now they can't have anything on collusion, and they setting their eyes on obstruction of justice. But how can you obstruct justice when there is no crime? Well, I do not feel sorry for the journalists on the left in the mainstream media. I do not feel sorry for them at all, because where are their apologies? Where are their, after 2.5 years of making up so many stories, finding some substance that they could talk about ad nauseum over and over again about how Trump colluded? They called President Trump a traitor. Where are those people who called him that? Where are they now, and why are they not apologizing to the office of the presidency of the United States, if not Donald Trump himself? Well, today we got some clips for you. We have got so much to talk about, and I think the best way to do it is last Thursday night, Sean Hannity came on, and his monologue really summed up so much of what I would like to say. I'm going to play some of that. I will put some input in. Before we do that, before we get to that, I just, on Fox Network, they had Congressman Jordan from Ohio and Congressman Mark Meadows from North Carolina, and they were asking them about the Mueller report, and Congressman Meadows said something about Adam Schiff that it just hit home. It rings true. Take a listen to this clip, and then we'll talk more about what Sean Hannity had to say and what Doc Holliday has to say and what the American people all over this country need to hear. But first, take a listen to Congressman Mark Meadows and Jordan's from Ohio, and Mark Meadows is from North Carolina. Take a listen.
That's all they want to do.
You know, Congressman Meadows, the White House might have cooperated in the end, but not kicking and screaming along the way. They did answer that. Is the president written questions? But there were times when the president, if we're to believe the report out now, wanted to fire Mueller and wanted to do his best to get rid of the guy. It didn't happen because, people around him wouldn't do it, including his top counsel. So had that happened, and had he succeeded at that, would that have changed this entire story?
Well, I mean, we don't know, Neil. I mean, the fact of the matter is that he did conclude the investigation. And listen, you know the president. I know the president really well. If he wanted to fire Bob Mueller, he would have been fired. I mean, to suggest that there was one conversation and he instructed Don McGahn to fire him and it didn't happen. Well, let me just say that he actually reports to the President of the United States. His office is right above the executive suite. It's not like they don't see each other on a regular basis. So, we also don't have the privilege of a cross-examination here. This is one side. This is a prosecutor laying out the best evidence he has against the president, and he was still exonerated. And so, it's a good day for America. It's a good day for the president because what we now know, and it was interesting, Adam Schiff had this wonderful presser just a few minutes ago. That's a different Adam Schiff that's been on every Sunday show and every cable news network saying, I've got evidence, we're going to find the president guilty. Now all of a sudden he's changing the narrative. It's time for him to fess up and admit to the American people that he didn't have what he said he had.
Congressman Mark Meadows, I could not agree with you more. Adam Schiff, what is it? President Trump calls him pencil neck, but pencil neck has been shouting to the high heavens. He had evidence of collusion. Will put up or shut up. In fact, he needs to shut so much up. I mean, he's an embarrassment to the Democratic Party. I would think Nancy Pelosi would say, this guy's made a fool of himself in front of the American people. I think independents and a lot of Democrats are going to say, what is this foolish man talking about, still having evidence of collusion? If he had it, he would have showed it a long time ago. And I've heard people say about, that when did Bob Mueller know when there was no collusion? And we've talked about on this show before. It had to be just months after he started his investigation. Why did it go 2.5 years? Was it just to get rid of? Was it to put the Democrats in the House, in charge of the House? Was it to ruin the midterm elections? Very likely could be. He wasn't going to release it just before the elections. Then he didn't want to release it right after, just looking like he was holding on because of elections. But really, how long did it take Robert Mueller? And I believe Congressman Nadler from New York is going to subpoena him in front of the Congress. So I hope some of the Republicans will ask him, when did you know? When did you know for sure there was no collusion? And I would like to hear what his answer is on that. But I tell you, if Congressman Schiff, he's such an embarrassment to the entire Democratic Party. I mean, that is going to help get some Republicans elected. The more he talks, the more likely Republicans are to take over the House in 2020. That's my take on it. And I hope Adam Schiff will listen to me. I would love to have him on Doc Holliday's Rock Splitting Politics. So if you know Adam Schiff, tell him we'll get him on Doc Holliday's Rock Splitting Politics anytime he wants to come on. Now, we're going to play a clip from Sean Hannity here in just a minute. And I do want to say he had such a good monologue. I'd love to play the whole thing. Of course, I can't do it, but I'm going to play some clips. I'll come in, intervene, and you just have to know, after 2.5 years, you want to celebrate. I feel like celebrating, but it makes me so intensely in a rage against those who would have perpetuated this on candidate Donald Trump, then President-elect Donald Trump, and then President Donald Trump. Think how much it has held back his ability to make America great again. Think of the way so many people just called him a traitor, called the President of the United States a traitor. We had people in the former Obama administration. I'm talking about head of the CIA, head of the National Intelligence, all these different people who just berated President Trump. And now, where are they to apologize? And yet you realize the whole entire effort in this entire hoax didn't ever need a Mueller investigation. Did not need that. And I still am spinning in circles knowing such a brilliant man that Senator Jeff Sessions is, and how I know he was trying to be super loyal to make sure it wasn't a drop of any hint that he had anything to do with Russia. And so he recused himself. But it put the president in a bind, and now all this 2.5 years later, and you just think what the president could have done, and how he could have got more steam to make America great again. But you can't go back in the past, but what we can do is move forward together, everyone doing what they can to help make sure a hoax like this won't ever happen again. And we need to make sure those who, if they broke the laws, they need to be held up to a standard, and they fail, they've broken laws. We need to let people know in the next generations that this won't be tolerated again, to have a hoax like a coup to take out an elected president, elected by the people, by the U.S. Constitution. And we had high-ups in intelligence and FBI who wanted this man not to take the White House, and they used their government powers to try and make that happen. How involved? I hope we can find out. I do. Now,
we begin tonight with a Fox News alert. The witch hunt is officially over. The Mueller report is out, and the President of the United States has been totally and completely vindicated. Watch this.
I'm having a good day, too. It was called No Collusion, No Obstruction. I'm having it. There never was, by the way, and there never will be. And we do have to get to the bottom of these things, I will say. And this should never happen. This should never happen to another president again. This hoax. This should never happen to another president again.
And we're going to do our part to make sure it doesn't happen again. We're holding those people accountable. We have a lot to get to tonight, but for the past 2.5 years, the leader of the free world was forced to dedicate so much precious time, energy, resources to an unjust investigation surrounding what is a hoax. Here's the bottom line directly from the Mueller report. Quote, the investigation did not establish that members of the Trump campaign conspired or coordinated with the Russian government in its election interference activities. The president's team of lawyers are rightfully triumphant, writing, quote, the results of the investigation are a total victory for the president. The report underscores what we have argued from the very beginning. There was no collusion. There was no obstruction. It is clear there was no criminal wrongdoing, nothing withheld, nothing concealed. Oh, nothing deleted, nothing destroyed, and nothing bleached. That's right, no bleach pit, unlike Hillary Clinton. The president didn't destroy subpoenaed emails or any other evidence in this case. He did not invoke executive privilege. Instead, according to former independent counsel Ken Starr, the president's cooperation in this case was unprecedented. And that's because President Trump had nothing to hide. Thousands and thousands of documents were turned over, almost 1.4 million. Unfettered access given to Trump campaign officials, administration employees. Mueller's team completed 30 hours of interviews with the White House counsel. How does that ever happen? No executive privilege was used to hide anything in Mueller's report. By contrast, the Obama administration, they used executive privilege to withhold 20 emails from then Attorney General Eric Holder surrounding his involvement in the Fast and Furious gun running scandal. Well, that was a real scandal, whereas Trump, Russia, collusion was a farce. Tonight, thankfully, for the sake of this country, truth has prevailed.
Well, you heard Sean Hannity say it right there. He summed it all up, and you can't say it much better than he did. And that's why I wanted to play that clip. The president is exonerated. There's no collusion. They couldn't find anything to put obstruction of justice. And to compare that, which some Democrats are doing, and saying, well, Bill Clinton was impeached for something far less, that is wrong, is absolutely wrong, because we know there are at least 5 times that they said that Clinton broke the law when it came in obstruction of justice. And there was proven time, like Ken Starr's report said, that the president obstructed justice. That's President Clinton, and he did get impeached. But of course, the Senate didn't do anything in trying or judging him. They just went through the motions to say, not guilty of high crimes and misdemeanors. But that is something the Democrats, and this is what it boils down to. It looks like the Democrats want to do nothing more than just they want this to continue on because they know it's a free contribution to getting a Democrat elected in 2020. They want to keep the investigation going, to keep a cloud over the White House, and I think the American people are sick of it, and I think they will see the truth for what it is. But that's what Hannity had to say. Let's listen a little more. Then in a little bit, we got a clip. I want to play what Congressman Jordan said just last Saturday of Hannity and Cavuto on the Fox Business Network. But he talked about where do we go from here, and I'll play that clip for you. But let's listen a little bit more right here of Sean Hannity after this message from our friend Todd Starnes.
Hello, America. Todd Starnes here from the Fox News corner of the world, and you are listening to Rock Splitting Politics. Sweet mercy.
Woo, all right.
That's good.
Hey, that is Todd Starnes from the Fox News world, and we appreciate him calling out for people to listen to Doc Holliday's Rock Splitting Politics. And let me remind you, you are listening to us right here on webtalkradio.net. I'm your host, Dr. Ed Holliday. We're glad to have new listeners. We keep getting new listeners because of you telling people about Doc Holliday's Rock Splitting Politics right here on webtalkradio.net, where you hear some things here you won't hear anywhere else because nobody takes up the news the way we do right here on Doc Holliday's Rock Splitting Politics. Let me remind you, we also have a book called Bedrock Truths. You can go to the book cover right there on our front page of Web Talk Radio, where it has Rock Splitting Politics, and you can click on that. It'll when you click on it, it'll take you over to my website, docholliday.org, and you can go there and order the book, Bedrock Truths. So like for you to pick up that book, get one for your friend or neighbors, and listen, this is an important time because we can see the Democrats already starting the 2020 election, but there is an undercurrent, and I've talked about it before, of something new, something. It's like turning the soil. You can almost smell some fresh soil being turned, and it's not by the Democrats, and it's not by the Republicans, but there's something new going on in this country. Just keep listening to Doc Holliday's Rock Splitting Politics. We'll keep you posted. You remember the word? And some of you may not remember, we've talked about Jang Ma Dang. Jang Ma Dang. They call it Jang Ma Dang USA, but it's that word comes from the North Koreans who, during a famine of the 1990s, they had to do something to survive, so the government would look away and let them have a black market and some type of capitalism where they could sell things so they could stay alive. And even now, today, that black market still exists in North Korea, and the government will look away. It's called the Jang Ma Dang, and we just move it over here to the USA because there's this thirst for freedom, the thirst to be free, and that thirst for freedom we saw again celebrated in the Jewish tradition of Passover. We saw the Christian tradition of Easter, and free from death, free from. They talk about Jesus rising again from the grave. And then I went to a meeting just other day where we talked about the Underground Railroad and how it helped usher. It was not a path. You couldn't have a path, or the bounty hunters looking for fugitive slaves would catch everybody. So it was Underground Railroad. There was no path. Mainly went around the rivers, some rivers, and there was a doctor who bicycled that route that from Mobile, Alabama, up to Canada. But the thirst for freedom, and this is probably an unsung story. We need to know more about the Underground Railroad in American history. But America is ripe with people who want to be free, and it's in our DNA, and that's why we explore these areas on Doc Holliday's Rock Splitting Politics. So keep listening to us. I'm going to play this clip from Sean Hannity, and then we're going to get to Congressman Jordan. And I just want to say happy Easter, happy Passover, happy freedom, and we are getting into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. Starting up this election, this Mueller report. You hadn't heard the last of it because of the Democrats do not want to move on, and they're going to pay a big price. and it's going to be a bigger price because they're not moving on. We're going to find out, let the investigators be investigated themselves. How about that? I think we should do it. Now, take a listen to Sean Hannity again.
As the president's attorneys put it, quote, this vindication of the president is an important step forward for the country and a strong reminder that this type of abuse must never be permitted to occur again.
Well, do you believe that? That is so right from the White House, from the President Trump's lawyers, that this kind of abuse, and the president said himself, should never happen to another president. It's unthinkable that we almost had a coup. We had intelligence officers, FBI officers, high up, that were working on nothing less than a coup on the American president. The president-elect, they tried to keep this Donald Trump from being elected once he was president-elect, and even while he's president, they kept undermining his presidency with nothing less than a coup against the president of the United States, a constitutionally elected president of the United States. And in all the uproar, and I think Bob Mueller has something to answer for. Why did it take him so long? Was he purposefully holding everything out? And when he knew there was no collusion, did he purposefully hold everything out so that the Democrats could have more firepower in their political machine to get the House into the hands and try to get the Senate into the hands of the Democrats so they could get rid of President Trump? Was it an ongoing part of the coup? That question has to be asked. And I would like to hear why Robert Mueller did not get his report completed before he did. There was no reason to go 2.5 years. But even now, I believe the Democrats are going to keep using this over and over and over. And I hope the American people will get sick of it, and they will tell the Democrats to go jump in a lake and just, let them go to their left wing. And I hope their people will come pouring out of the Democratic Party and say enough is enough. And if they keep pushing these things and trying to make political hay, which they've been doing for 2.5 years, they got to the House, and probably they got it because of the times they kept calling the president a traitor, and they did all this to try to get people to turn loose to the Republican Party. And even though the president's name was not on the ballot in the midterm elections, they knew they could get the House turned into Democratic hands with the lies they were telling to make people so infuriated at Trump, infuriated at the Republicans, that the Democrats would come out en masse and vote and get the House. They did it, and they tried to get the Senate. Thank goodness they didn't get the Senate. But listen, that is what is going on, and I just have to say that what you heard from Sean Hannity, and then it's been echoed throughout the people of Sanity. What Sean Hannity's been saying on his show for over 2 years now, and investigations, has all been true. The other things on the other shows, CNN, MSNBC, CBS, ABC, NBC, all these news teams have gotten it wrong time after time after time. They get nailed with fake news, and they rail against the president for being against the press. Why don't they apologize when they make mistakes? We can point time after time. They had liars on the air that said the president was a traitor. They had people saying the president did this, and there was collusion. And we had Adam Schiff, Congressman Schiff, saying he had evidence. Well, show that evidence or shut up. That's what needs to be said. Wow, you can get worked up on the amount. It is such a farce, a hoax, a coup against the president of the United States by people within the government and within intelligence communities. If crimes have been committed, people need to pay a price, so that this, just like you heard on Sean Hannity saying, that this should never happen to another president in the history of the United States. Should not happen ever again. So let's move on. And Congressman Jim Jordan was talking on Neil Cavuto just last Saturday. Take a listen to what he had to say.
Move on and address the immigration issue and a bunch of other issues. And frankly, when it comes to this Russia issue, what we need to do is find out how it started in the first place. The wrong premise, the faulty premise, the false premise that this whole thing started on with the dossier and everything else, that does need to be investigated, because you can't have the FBI using one party's opposition research document to launch an investigation and spy on the other party's campaign. And we know that took place, and we do need to get to the bottom of that, because it's never supposed to happen in this country.
All right. Be that as it may, and I know they're just polls, and it's just nowhere read a sentiment right now, but Congressman, there is a poll out of average voters across the country for whom the Mueller thing was a non-event and is not even on the list of top 5 concerns or 10 concerns, 15 or even 20 concerns.
Yeah.
Immigration, the economy, healthcare, those dominate this. What do you make of that, and whether there's great peril even for Republicans to pursue their own investigations of an investigation?
Well, certainly immigration is probably at the top of the list if I was guessing.
It is.
And yeah, of course, because it's a crisis on the border, and the American people want us to address that. But Democrats will not work with us to do the two things that have to be done: build a border security wall and change our asylum law. Those two things have to be done to deal with the emergency that is, in fact, on our border today. So I don't think the Democrats are going to work to address those. That's unfortunate. The American people want us to do that. Maybe they'll come around and we can actually address the things that the American people care most about. But I will say this, Neil. As I go about, I was in 2 different states over the past week. I've been across our district. People are tired of this double standard. This idea that there's one set of rules for regular folk, but a different set if your name is Comey or Clinton or Lynch or Lerner, these names here. So they do want people who launch this investigation on a false premise. They do want them held accountable. And I do think it's important we get to the bottom of this, because, as I said, that is not supposed to be how it works in this country. It's supposed to be equal treatment under the law. And the FBI is not allowed to use an opposition research document to launch an investigation into the other party's candidate. Bill Barr said that on the witness stand last week, in fact. So this is important. I think we do need to look at that.
And Congressman Jordan is correct. We do need to look at that. And Bill Barr says he is. Attorney General Bill Barr says he is. And I have to say, Bill Barr is being an Attorney General for the United States of America. And I don't know what happened to Jeff Sessions. I think he was undermined by his what he called friends in the Senate on the Democratic side. I think they knew all along that something's going on. And listen, Jim Jordan said something that's very important. We say, where are we going? But you need to listen to this. I'm going to play this, and then we'll finish up the show. But very important what Congressman Jordan's about to say.
So when Elijah Cummings of the House Oversight Committee says at least 100 times worse than the actions that led to the impeachment of Bill Clinton in 1998, is he hyperventilating, or what do you think?
Well, he's wrong. I mean, they actually did. The special counsel did, I think, in that situation, say there was obstruction of justice. This one didn't. So I think he's completely wrong. But it goes to what I just said. They're bound to determine to not do what's best for this country, but instead focus on getting the president. And what I think the American people want us to do is focus on the issues that count and get to the bottom of how this false thing started in the first place. Never forget this, Neil. Back in January of 2017, when it was President-elect Trump, so prior to the inauguration, Chuck Schumer is on one of the Sunday shows, and he makes this statement, which I think is scary. He said this: if you mess with the intelligence community, he was talking about the president, he said, if you mess with the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you. Think about that. That is scary. Unelected people aren't supposed to get back at elected people. They're supposed to do their job. But what, in fact, they did, it looks like that statement that Chuck Schumer made is exactly what took place at the top levels of the FBI under the Comey cabal, these 5 key people, when they launched this investigation into the president.
That is scary. That is like, it's as if the Democrats doing what they wanted to do and spy on the Trump campaign, and then bringing in the intelligence community to spy using the excuse is this unverified dossier, which they knew most of it was completely ridiculous, and you use that. And we got to get all the facts together. But it is scary. It's like the Democratic leaders that were in government overhead used the intelligence committee, and they've made like a political Frankenstein that has to be laughed at leaps and bounds in the Kremlin. They could never have done a better job of screwing up American politics than just the incremental steps they made that didn't have any effect on the election. And yet the Democrats wanted to use that in such a way that they have created this Frankenstein that has kept Donald Trump from being the strong president he is. They've tried to tie his hands behind his back to keep him from doing things both around the world and domestically. And yet, with all this Democratic political Frankenstein that the Democrats have made, they still think they're going to get off scot-free. Will they? Well, you know, the Frankenstein monster came back to haunt Dr. Frankenstein and the people he loved. And this political Democratic Frankenstein that has been conjured up, has been made using pieces and parts of undocumented dossiers and lies and cheat and steal and doing things that the intelligence community should not be doing, spying on another political campaign for political purposes. If that has happened, I hope this Democratic political Frankenstein will come back and help dismantle the people who put it together themselves. All right, that's Doc Holliday's Rock Splitting Politics. We will see you next week for another round of Doc Holliday's Rock Splitting Politics, because you know the rocks are splitting and we are seeing something unlike anything we've seen in America before. It is unprecedented, and I believe freedom will rise to the occasion. We are free people, and we want to remain that way.
Thanks for joining us today, and remember to listen again next week for another edition of Doc Holliday's Rock Splitting Politics. You can order Ed's new book, Bedrock Truths, by clicking on the book cover right in front of you on the screen, or visit DocHolliday.org. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you again next week.